On the 15th of April, 2017, I woke up with 2 small dots on my face, and my life changed forever. Hi, I'm Amanda Mond, as said before, and I'm a senior at ASL. And today I'm going to be talking to you about how I learned fearlessness. Now, fearlessness isn't something I was born knowing how to do. It is something I acquired through struggle. And hopefully, if you pay attention to my talk, you will be able to learn fearlessness without having to go through what I did. So going back to me when I was a freshman, before the 15th of April 2017, this is how I would describe my life. School, social, and sport. I'm sure many of you in this room right now would say that this is a pretty accurate representation of your life as well. However, my life sucked. I was the new kid, and while I felt quite welcomed, I didn't make any effort to make friends. I thought I was too cool for school, as some would say. And that was shown in my classes as well. I never did any of my homework, and I never paid attention either. And that was reflected in my grades. Next, my social life. At the time, I thought it was great. I was the youngest of my friend group by many years, but looking back now, it was very toxic. And lastly, sport. I was and still am a fencer. At the age of 14, I was British national champion, and I was also the youngest person on the cadet Great British squad, competing in different countries almost every weekend. I really did love fencing, and it was such an important part of my life. But a few weeks before I won the British National Championships, I fell out with my fencing coach. She was my best friend, and quite frankly, the thing that had me go to training every single day. I lost my passion, and I had to move fencing clubs because the argument was so bad. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. If it wasn't for my parents driving me to and from training every day, I don't think I would have gone. I'd come up with excuses, oh, I have too much work, not that I did it, or, oh, I don't feel well. And it was just excuses, really. And something needed to change because overall, I was just on a self-destructive path, and it was not good. And something did change. As I said before, the 15th of April 2017 is a day I will never be able to forget, no matter how much I want to. I was at a fencing competition, and I woke up with these 2 tiny dots on my face. And I looked in the mirror, and I said, I'm getting acne, my life is ruined. Now, I was so right and so wrong at the same time. They went away after a few days, but then another one appeared on my arm. That went away, and then I got one on my leg. Now, they weren't just red lumps, they were extremely painful. I couldn't touch them. It wasn't a good situation. Anyway, I thought it would go away, and I didn't even think there was a need to tell the doctor. Anyway, by the beginning of May, my whole body was covered in these painful lumps. I was no longer able to attend school, and fencing was completely out of the question. I had multiple doctor's appointments a day, and the best explanation I was getting is, I think you have bed bugs. After extensive blood tests, it turns out I was dying. I had no idea what to do, and quite frankly, at this point in my journey, I was enjoying myself. I didn't like my life, and not having to wake up and go to school every day and fence was a break I needed. I got to watch Netflix all day long and get my mom to get me Panzer's paninis, and I was living it up. Now, I wasn't able to go to school, and there was a problem because I didn't think I could then go on to sophomore year. But somehow, while I was dying, I managed to come into school, take my finals, and pass. Then, at the beginning of June, everything got worse. I had constant fevers, and I had such bad joint and muscle pain that I was no longer able to walk. I needed a nurse on either side of me to help me get to the bathroom, and I remember crawling on the floor to go get some toast. I was finally diagnosed with polyarteritis nodosa. You haven't heard of it. It is extremely rare. I thought, okay, things are gonna get better now. I can start treatment. I was wrong. The illness was the best part. Oh, I skipped too far, sorry. Anyway, so to put it simply, my illness is when my immune system kind of goes into overdrive and started attacking all the organs in my body. For me, it was just my skin, muscles, and joints. Some would consider that lucky. There is officially no cure. However, the disease can go into remission, which means there's no active disease. The treatment was chemotherapy and heavy steroid treatment. Now, for a 15-year-old being told that, I mean, that's a lot. The chemo was horrible. Apart from being sick for a long time, a lot of my hair fell out, over half of it. And I've been dyeing my hair since I was 10 years old. My hair has been every color except for black and yellow. So as you can imagine, being in the shower and having clumps falling out wasn't very fun. In fact, I didn't brush my hair for over a month because every time I did, there'd be a pile of hair below me. But that still wasn't the worst part. The steroids were. After my first infusion, in the first 3 weeks alone, I gained 30 pounds. I couldn't fit in my fencing jacket, and being an athlete, I mean, being overweight and being an athlete don't really go together. It was horrible. I was so concerned with the way I looked and everything that I didn't even care that I might die. So now coming back to this. Completely gone. Wasn't going to school, wasn't able to fence, and a lot of the friends that I probably would have taken a bullet for didn't even text me when I was in hospital. So I was faced with a choice. Do I want to rebuild my life and work hard to get back to where I was? Or did I want to work harder and be better? You can imagine what I did. So this is what I had to learn. I had to learn how to be vulnerable. In friend situations, I'm usually the rock. I keep everyone together, I ground people, I help people with their problems, and it's something I love doing. Having to be the one calling up my friend saying, hey, so here's the thing, I might die, I'm very sick in hospital. It was not easy, and family too. I think the time I felt most vulnerable was when I had to call my fencing coach, who I hadn't spoken to in over a year. And I remember crying down the phone, saying, I miss you, I'm sorry, please help me. 2 weeks later, she was holding my hand for my first chemotherapy infusion in hospital. In other ways, I had to learn to be vulnerable. I had to come to school. I couldn't let my fears dictate my passion. Even though there was a time when I was in a wheelchair and didn't know if I was ever going to be able to walk again, somehow deep down I knew that I would always be able to fence again. There was no question about it. It's something I've been doing since I was 8 years old. It's a part of who I am. I had to wait. My body was in no state for sports at all. It took time, and watching everyone prepare for competition season again was one of the hardest things. By the beginning of second semester of my sophomore year, I decided it's time. If I ever want to lose weight, and if I ever want to be able to get back in the rankings and fence again, this was just something I had to do. And with the help of my fencing coach, who's also one of my best friends, I was able to go back into training. Now, it still wasn't easy. I walked in the door, everyone was staring at me, whispering. Some people thought I had a baby. I don't know. It was weird, and no one was able to ask me about it. I mean, I know I left the fencing community a champion, but I still wasn't liked, probably because I was a champion. But anyway, if I allowed my fears to dictate my passions, I never would have been able to go back fencing. In fact, I had a fencing competition last weekend, which explains the bruises on my legs. I mean, a lot better than the lumps, to be honest. And last, but most certainly not least, I had to confront my fears. The hardest thing for me was coming back to school, hands down. I didn't have that friend group of support that knew everything I went through. There were a few people, don't get me wrong, shout out to you if you were with me then. But I didn't have a place of belonging. When I was in hospital, one person from ASL texted me. And I said to them, no one else has reached out. I woke up the next morning with over 60 requests to add me on Snapchat with all sorts of messages. Oh, I was in your math class. I hope you're better. I didn't even know their names. I really didn't pay attention in school. So I felt like I did have something to hold on to, that I could go back to this place and not be the kid that would eat lunch in the bathroom by herself. I could sit and talk to people. So I managed to come back to school. And it was hard. If it wasn't for my mother, I probably wouldn't have come back. I had a panic attack every single morning of September. Often I'd get to school, I'd be in class, I'd catch someone staring at me, another panic attack. It was hard, but it's the best thing I did. Because when I started coming back to school, I didn't have a social life or fencing. So I thought, maybe I'll do some of my homework. We'll see what happens. Teachers probably assign it for a reason. So I did my homework, and I thought, I'll pay attention in class too. It could be interesting. So I did. And then I got my first few quizzes back, and I noticed some A's, and I was like, okay, that's a bit weird. I did more. Anyway, by the time first semester grades came out, I don't even think my parents knew who I was anymore. I would rush home from school to start my work. I'd be so excited, I'd enjoy doing it, and then I'd finish it and I'd feel so empty. And I'm part of me's thinking there's something wrong with me. The other part wants to do more. And I realized that I was subconsciously using school as a distraction from my health problems. But it wasn't a bad distraction. It was amazing for me. Now I'm applying to colleges I couldn't have even dreamed of. And sophomore year, I actually made honor roll, which if you had told me or my teachers the year before, we would have laughed in your face. So it's clear to see that I was able to use this experience to make my life better. And quite frankly, standing here on stage before you and being able to say that everything I went through was just so worth it is all that 15-year-old me going through chemotherapy would have wanted. So thank you. And hopefully you can apply some of these and learn fearlessness. You just got to do it, man. So thank you.